Welcome to the City of Bellevue's public hearing open house for the proposed 36th Street Improvement Project. The primary purpose of this hearing is to present the draft environmental assessment and receive your feedback. This proposed project is being developed as a federal aid project. The Federal Highway Administration, FHWA, as a lead federal agency, is required to comply with the National Environmental Policy Act of 1969, or NEPA. The primary purpose of this hearing is to present the draft environmental assessment in an open house format. From 5 to 6, there will be an open house informational meeting with an official presentation and public hearing starting at 6:15, running until 7 o'clock. Public comments will be received and recorded during the forum at an open microphone. Public comments may also be given via mail, email, fax, or telephone. This presentation summarizes the draft environmental assessment prepared in compliance with the National Environmental Policy Act for the proposed roadway improvements to 36th Street, from Blind Avenue to Platteview Road. The proposed project is within Sarpy County, and the total length of the project would be approximately 3.2 miles. The designs being presented here are still preliminary and subject to change before any final engineering designs and plans are approved or completed. Your input is important. The existing roadway is a 2-lane rural roadway with no surface shoulders and ditches. This project is intended to develop an improved transportation corridor between Blind Avenue and Platteview Road in Bellevue. The improved corridor is intended for the following purposes. 1. Improve local traffic operations along 36th Street and accommodate future traffic volumes and travel demands between Blind Avenue and Platteview Road. 2. Facilitate the safe and efficient flow of existing traffic. The need for the project is to reduce the current and future problems with congestion and travel delays along the 36th Street corridor between Blind Avenue and Platteview Road while increasing mobility, improving system levels of service, and enhancing safety. The forecasted traffic volume for 36th Street for the year 2040 is 26,000 vehicles per day north of Capehart Road and 12,000 vehicles per day south of Capehart Road. In addition to a no-build alternative, 7 alternatives were studied along the project corridor. These include spot improvements and various lane configuration alternatives. Alternatives 2, 3, 4, and 7 were not carried forward as they did not meet the purpose and need. Alternatives 6 and 8 were not selected as they had greater impacts and less public support than Alternative 5. The no-build alternative was carried through the EA analysis as required by NEPA. The no-build alternative provides the baseline for evaluating potential impacts. The 4-lane divided 3-lane combination alternative was determined to be the preferred alternative. This alternative meets the project purpose and need, resulted in fewer environmental and right-of-way impacts, and had the greatest level of public support during the previous public meetings. To comply with the requirements of the National Environmental Policy Act, an environmental assessment has been developed for this project. The purpose of the environmental assessment is to evaluate potential impacts to the environment that may result from the proposed project alternatives. The environmental assessment could result in one of 3 outcomes: a finding of no significant impact, a determination that more information is needed, or that significant impacts would occur and an environmental impact statement is required. Copies of the draft environmental assessment are available here tonight for review. Copies are also available for review at the NDOR headquarters, FHWA Nebraska Division offices in Lincoln, Bellevue City Clerk's office, and the Bellevue Public Library, as well as online at the City of Bellevue website. Environmental considerations include economic, social, and environmental impacts. The following is a summary of the potential impacts identified in the draft environmental assessment. It is estimated that the project will result in impacts less than 0.1 acre of wetlands and less than 300 linear feet of stream channel. A Clean Water Act Section 404 permit would be obtained from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers prior to construction. No wetland or stream mitigation would be required. The project area would include tree removal in the range of the northern long-eared bat. tree removal would occur outside of the roosting season for the bat to avoid impacts. It has been determined that one property within the study area is eligible for inclusion on the National Register of Historic Places. This property would be avoided, and the project would result in a no adverse effect determination. The State Historic Preservation Office concurred with this determination. Publicly owned parks, as well as wildlife refuges and properties eligible for the National Register of Historic Places, are protected under Section 4F of the Transportation Act of 1966. No impacts to the features, attributes, or activities of Leawood Oaks Park that make it eligible for protection under Section 4F would occur. The park impacts would be minimized by constructing a retaining wall in the area. As a result, FHWA has determined this project results in a de minimis impact. The City of Bellevue Parks Department has concurred with this determination. The project was evaluated to determine if it would result in increased noise impacts to residents along the corridor. The noise study determined 9 receptor locations would be impacted by the project. Noise walls were evaluated to mitigate these impacts, and all but one were determined to not be feasible and/or reasonable. A noise wall is feasible if it can be built to meet noise reduction goals, fit in the topography, and does not pose a safety concern. A wall is reasonable if it's cost-effective and is accepted by the adjacent landowners. A noise wall is feasible and reasonable along the east side of 36th Street south of Capehart Road at the Capehart housing neighborhood. This wall is approximately 960 feet long and is bisected by the McConnell Street intersection. The city is coordinating with the U.S. Air Force, Department of Defense, and residents in this area to determine if a noise wall would be included in this project. This, in part, hinges on a vote that will be put to the impacted residents and landowners. Right-of-way is a general term denoting land or property acquired for or devoted to a public use. If adequate right-of-way is not already owned, it must be acquired by purchase, donation, or eminent domain in order to build or maintain a public project. The proposed project will require the acquisition of new right-of-way, as well as permanent and temporary easements. No relocations would occur. Impacted residents would be contacted by City of Bellevue representatives at a later date. Any property acquisition for right-of-way would need to conform to the requirements set forth in the Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisitions Policy Act of 1970. Questions concerning the right-of-way process can be answered by visiting the right-of-way station or by reading the brochure available at this hearing. The following slides discuss the proposed improvements of the preferred alternative. North will generally be to the right or up. Please refer to the boards around the room for greater detail or talk to one of the staff present. The proposed improvements consist of reconstructing the existing 2-lane roadway to a 4-lane divided section from Blind Avenue to approximately McConnell Street. It then transitions to a 3-lane roadway with center turn lane south to Platteview Road. Curb and gutter, sidewalks, and a bike trail will be included. Starting at Blind Avenue, the 4-lane section would be carried south. Direct access to driveways would be reconstructed as needed throughout the corridor. 37th Street would be realigned across from Granada Parkway. This would be done to reduce conflict points and improve safety. Grades on the new 37th Street would be improved as well. This improvement was not shown in the draft environmental assessment, but will be shown in the final document. Continuing south, access to the Anderson Grove Presbyterian Church would be maintained at all times. Impacts to the church parking would occur as a result of the widening. Approximately 8 stalls are in the existing right-of-way and will be removed. Handicapped parking stalls would be maintained, and ADA access to the church would be maintained at all times. Potential solutions including reconfiguring the existing stalls on the south side of the building and maintaining ADA accessible entrances. The city would work with the church during the final design and right-of-way process to address these issues. The median width would be reduced through this area, and retaining walls proposed to minimize impacts to the adjacent properties. The existing pedestrian crossing and access sidewalk would be reconstructed to meet current standards, and the driveway at St. Matthew's Church would be reconstructed to improve access and operations during school pickup and drop-off. Moving south, we approach Capehart Road, where the traffic signal would be reconstructed along with the intersection improvements including dedicated turn lanes. Retaining walls would again be necessary to limit impacts to the Department of Defense properties to the east. Along Capehart Road, the west side would have minimal improvements, while the east side would widen out to the 4-lane divided section to improve the intersection operations. This would require improvements extending to 33rd Street to taper back into the existing roadway. Consultation with the DoD has occurred regarding impacts to their property. The trees within the limits of construction along the corridor will be removed as part of the road construction. Jumping back to 36th Street corridor, a noise wall may be constructed south of Capehart along the DoD property, pending a vote by the impacted owners. Between McConnell Street and Leawood Drive, 36th Street would transition to a 3-lane section with a center turn lane. The roadway would be offset to the east to aid in construction and facilitate widening in the future. Access to utility facilities along the corridor, such as the CenturyLink building, would be maintained at all times. On the east side is Leawood Park. Retaining walls would be constructed to limit impacts to the park. Up to 200 feet of side streets would be reconstructed as needed to tie into the new grades on 36th Street. Private fences impacted by construction would be rebuilt during the construction project. Impacts to the tributary along west side would be limited to the areas of storm sewer outfall construction. South of Looking Glass Drive is the Heartland Hills SID Park. No impacts are anticipated at this park. The existing pedestrian crossing and right turn lane would be reconstructed to meet current standards. Impacts would be avoided to the historic farmstead. Continuing south, the existing pedestrian crossing would be reconstructed to meet current standards. South of Tammy Street, the alignment of 36th Street would shift to the west. This would reduce the impacts to the properties on the east side, as the elevation of the roadway must be raised to avoid impacting the 60-inch water main that lies underneath the roadway. 36th Street would stay on this shifted alignment through Shanecloth Road. The open farmland on the west would allow for the shift to again minimize impacts to the properties on the east. Approximately halfway between Shanecloth Road and Platteview Road, the alignment would shift back to the existing section line and tie in at Platteview Road. Impacts to the adjacent wetlands and channel have been minimized. No improvements to Platteview Road are proposed as part of this project. Construction of 36th Street is broken into 2 projects. Phase 1, Blind to Sheridan, is proposed to begin in the spring of 2019, and Phase 2, Sheridan to Platteview, would start approximately 3 to 5 years after Phase 1 is complete, when funding is available. In general, the Phase 1 project would be constructed over 2 construction seasons, currently proposed to work from south to north, keeping traffic open during construction. This would be accomplished by using temporary pavement and closure of alternating intersections to allow neighborhood traffic to access 36th Street. Through traffic on 36th Street would be maintained using temporary road widening, and access to neighborhoods and properties would be maintained at all times during construction activities. Some residences on 36th Street could lose direct access during driveway reconstruction. This restriction would be short-term, up to 2 weeks. Alternative access or parking accommodations would be made in the same neighborhood up to 2 blocks away. Coordination with properties losing access would occur prior to the work commencing, and special access needs would be addressed on a case-by-case basis. Access for emergency response would be coordinated through the project. Trash and recycling service would continue during construction. Residents would place their containers in their driveways on regular collection day. The contractor would be responsible for transporting the containers to a designated collection zone and returning to the respective property. The costs of construction for the 2 program projects are as follows. Phase 1 is approximately $10.9 million, and Phase 2 is approximately $9.9 million. Funding sources would include federal and local funding through the City of Bellevue. The City of Bellevue would participate with a 20% cost share. All interested persons are invited to present remarks and questions. Your comments are encouraged. Public statements may be made between 6:30 and 7:00 p.m. during the public forum. If you wish to make a verbal statement privately, ask for a representative at the sign-in table. All verbal comments will be transcribed and will become part of the project record, environmental assessment, and the official hearing transcript report. If you wish to express your views in writing, you may take a comment sheet. Emails and fax are also welcome. All substantive comments will be addressed in the final EA, which will be available on the City of Bellevue website. Following the comment period, the City and Design Consultant will review and address comments received and prepare the final environmental assessment. Upon FHWA review, a decision document will be prepared. If a finding of no significant impact is issued, the project would proceed with final design, right-of-way acquisition, and start construction, which is anticipated for spring of 2019. Thank you for attending the City of Bellevue Public Hearing Open House for the 36th Street Improvements Project. City representatives are available to meet with you and discuss any questions or concerns you may have on the project. The draft environmental assessment and preliminary plans are available for you to view.